what do you say we start with the brand new member of the TCU family? Actually, he's not all that new. He's a member of the Hall of Fame. He was a great athlete here. Now he gets to come back as the head coach for track and field. Khadevis Robinson joins us on Frogs Today right now. It's good to see your face, man. We haven't seen each other since the Hall of Fame banquet when you went in, and you got the TCU shirt on already. I love that, man.
Yeah, they say once a frog, always a frog. So I have some pearl laying around the house, and so felt good putting it back on, and it felt good to hear your voice and be back to the DFW area.
Yeah, and this is home for you, obviously. Folks that don't know, you were born in Dallas, but you grew up in Fort Worth, right? I mean, Fort Worth is what you would consider to be home, right?
Yes, I mean a good amount of my family is in Dallas and Fort Worth, but for the most part, I was born in Dallas, but raised on the south side of Fort Worth.
Yeah, and coming home here to TCU, I want to talk about the career that you've had, both as a runner and as a coach. But I want to dive a little deeper into what this means now to be able to come home to a place where you were terrific as an athlete, and now you get to sort of give back, if you will. This is really a full circle moment, isn't it?
It is, and I think sometimes we take those things for granted. We take for granted family and friends and people that really care for you, the coaches that help mold you, individuals like yourself that's followed your career. We take those things for granted sometimes, but then when you're away for a while, you start to miss those things, and just being able to come back and just drive down certain streets, hear certain voices, smell certain foods. It just really brings it back to full circle. So I'm extremely excited about this opportunity.
Khadevis, you've had some terrific opportunities in your career, both as an athlete and as a coach. How will those, I'm going to call them worldly benefits, because that's what they were. I mean, you got to see the world as an athlete and as a coach. How does that benefit you and prepare you for this job now as a head coach?
There's a quote that says that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And my experiences at TCU let me know that as an athlete, um, the coaches and the administration and the people here really cared about you as an individual. And I really took that to heart. I took that with me when I went to California and Vegas and Ohio State, LSU, UNLV. And I think that helps. I think no matter where you are in the world, if you're a truly caring person, if you really care about people, you really treat them right, listen to them, help them out, I think that's beneficial. And I think that's prepared me to come back in this position, knowing that it's going to be tough. It's going to be a pretty stressful position, but having the assistance and the support from the community is going to be a plus.
Khadevis, you talked about that resume that you rolled through as a coach there. I mean, UNLV, LSU, Ohio State. That's the bigs of the big. Why come back to TCU?
For one, it's home. For two, I think it can be done here. When I was here, our man, we was third in the nation. We had some good things going, and if some of those names that was on the team, you're talking about Johnny Collins, who's still in the DFW area. You're talking about Clayton Brookins, who's the head coach over at Duncanville High School. You're talking about, some of the females that was on the team too, Tanisha and Brown, who's over. I think she's
Yeah.
at ODY, Gisela Jackson, and I can go on and on. I'm forgetting some people that was part of those teams, but just to come back and be a part of something that's history and tradition. I always say this, and this is what the point I want to get across. When I was a kid and when you was a kid, coaches was an extension of the family. In other words, if our parents was late to pick us up from school, they felt comfortable with us being with the coaches. And if we did something we weren't supposed to do, the coaches and the other families in our neighborhood could discipline us and all those types of things. And they say it takes a village to raise a child. And a lot of our success is because of coaches that was in our lives and neighbors who was in our lives and teachers and all those types of things. So for me, that's the thing that's special about TCU and about Fort Worth. It's not just an atmosphere or a place that you can go and be a competitive athlete. It's also a place that can mold you to being, a pretty good human being or a young man or a young woman. I mean, one of my closest friends when I was at TCU is a guy by the name of Ash Husenlaw. And when he came to TCU, me and him were total opposites. I mean, I was, from the inner city, fairly liberal. He was from Tyler and he was very conservative. And, used to listen to Rush Limbaugh every day, and we used to get into it. And I coached John McKenzie and Bubba Thornton made us. They say, hey, we don't care where you guys are from. We don't care if you're black and you white, you conservative, you're liberal. This is one team, and you guys have to figure out a way to get along. Well, Ash went to my first Olympic Games in Athens, Greece. I was the best man in his wedding. He was the best man in my wedding, and we've still friends to this day. And I think that's what it's about. I think it's about building those relationships. So it's more than just the running and competing. It's about being good human beings.
Well, hey, the other thing you bring to the table too, you mentioned the Athens Olympics. You participated in the London Olympics as well. I mean, when you walk into a student athlete's home, you can show them that you've been to the pinnacle and you know how to get there, right?
That's correct. And I think that makes a difference. I think some of the kids that have aspirations of, going further in their athletic career, I think they can look at that and say, okay, he's been there and he knows kind of what it takes. And, we all know it's hard work, dedication, sacrifice, and all those types of things. But to be able to just look them in the eye and say, this is what I did and this is what I think it'll take. And I think you have that potential. I think that's a plus.
Khadevis, your 4x800 team, or 4x400 team, I should say, because you ran the 800 as well, but your 4x400 relay team, you guys were rock stars back then. You remember that?
I do. We was like a family,
Yeah.
myself, Johnny Collins, Roy Williams, and Clayton Brookins. We all still keep in touch with each other. All of us are from this DFW area,
Yeah.
And it's funny, man, because it's like we would go to meets and we felt confident. None of us were superstars out of high school. We were good. I only got the best I did in high school was fourth. And, Clayton was my high school teammate, and then Johnny went to OD Wyatt and Roy, I think, is from Joshua. But, it was a family atmosphere. We really enjoyed coming together. We really enjoyed running together. And we've kept in touch. And I think it's got to be something to be said about that, where here it is 20-some years later, you still keep in touch and you still have those fun memories. And I think that's important.
Yeah, when you think about where this program can be, it sort of feels like the sky's the limit for this group. I kind of jokingly said Ohio State, LSU, why TCU? There's no reason why TCU can't be mentioned in that same sentence when it comes to track and field, is it?
No, it isn't. I think, when you look at the dynamics of the NCAA Division I track and field now with the transfer portal, with the NIL, with the type of resources that's in there, it does make it a bit of a challenge. And I think we have to have a different approach, not necessarily a new approach, but a different approach. It's going to take some work. I think, sometimes, you have to take two steps back to move two steps forward, but it can be done. I also think that TCU can be a team that has representation in all areas on both the men and women's side. It's going to take work. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but I think it can be done. And I think when you have a school like TCU in the DFW area with the alumni that's here, that's what they expect. They expect to have both men and women. Obviously, the sprints, the flying frogs, that's the history. But we can have some middle distance. We can have some jumpers. We can have some throwers, and we can do it with kids out of the DFW area. So I'm excited about that.
Hey, let's go back and remake some of those posters we used to make, man, with the flying frogs in front of the jets and things like that. You want to do that, man?
Yeah, with the full body bodysuits,
Yes.
The purple bodysuits and all of those types of things. I always tell kids that athletics and sports are supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
We get so competitive, we get so serious that we forget that it's supposed to be fun. And I think that's one thing that we all remember as kids. We remember having fun. We remember the flying frogs when they used to have those bodysuits on. We remember all those things that we look back on and we reminisce about. And I think those are things that we have to bring back into the fold.
Yeah, when you walked in the Penn relays and the whole place stood up and applauded because TCU had entered, man. Remember those days? God,
yes,
let's bring them back. Khadevis Robinson,
yes,
man, I'm looking forward to having you back in Fort Worth. Thanks for making the time with us here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Please have it back as much as possible. I love doing these.